who's joining and who's not. So I thank you so much for joining us this morning. Imposter to superhero seems to be one of those topics that never goes away. Those of you just joined, please do check in with the chat, say hello, and where are you dialing in from. And so imposter syndrome is a really popular topic, but it's a term that was coined in the 1970s by two psychologists, Suzanne Imes and Pauline Clance. And they believed that it was solely to do with high achieving women. But I'm very aware from all the work that I've been doing with scientists and engineers, and there's, of course, in engineering, there's lots and lots of guys, that actually it's not the sole preserve of women. But it's almost like, you know, those moments when you think you're waiting for somebody to come along and with a clipboard and check off and say, are you sure that you should be here? And so I wanted to share some of the work that we've been doing. And I've been writing a literature review around well-being among early career researchers in engineering. And it really noticed how when people get more stressed, the sense of imposter syndrome would grow. And so it's something that's really important to address, and it's something that we don't need to live with. There are things that we can do about it. Of course, those who are working in engineering do tend to find that they're so focused on the engineering and getting products working that they perhaps sometimes don't think about themselves or spend enough time considering where they are. And so today is really for you if you want to do better by your students or your colleagues, or you're just finding that you can't manage to be your very best. And of course, that's what we want for everybody. We want you to be able to be your best. You know, there might be times when you feel like you're winging it, you're just getting by, and maybe you're just scared of being found out. So today we're really thinking around how we can notice moments when we're feeling that and look at how we can interrupt it. So today I want to leave you at the end of the hour with an understanding of the difference between being an imposter and a superhero. What are your superpowers? Appreciate why scientists and engineers are really feeling inadequate, particularly in these post-COVID days. I want you to also maybe think about how imposter syndrome can be bad, but there's some new research out that actually shows it can have a beneficial impact on people. It might be surprising. And then at the end, I want to really give you 3 simple strategies to help you believe in yourself and some actions that you can take right now. Now, if you're working in the education space, then it might be for you, but it also might be some things that you can pass on to your students. So let's just do a little bit of housekeeping before we really get motoring. So we will be finishing by 10. I will be around after for some Q&A. And so just turn off notifications and distractions. Give us your full attention for this time. But do please engage and be interactive. We really value that. And it makes us feel that we're not staring at a screen and just chatting to each other. Helen's telling me, did I mean 10 o'clock? Yes, I did mean 10. What time did I say? Sorry. That's all to do with Microsoft putting me off my stride at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought, what time are we finishing? You said 10 and we started at 9:30, so it must be 10:30.
Oh, thank you so much. My maths has completely gone out the window today. And so do take some notes, but also do stay until the end. We will be sharing the video recording with you so you can catch up with it. And then we've got a little bonus for you at the end for turning up, and we'll be there for Q&A. But I would like to introduce the 2 other people who are part of the team who have made this possible, and it's really great fun to work with. Sometimes it's confusing on Teams when they come up as HS, is Helen. So she's already spoken, but Helen, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Helen. I'm part of the Katalytik support team, and I absolutely love helping people become the best form of themselves. So
and of course, Hayley, who's our technical whiz.
Yes, I'm Hayley. I'm based down here in Bubby Tracy in Devon. Not so sunny today, but yes, I'm the one who behind all the tech, making sure things should run smoothly when Jan wants to pull her hair out and scream at them when they're not working.
Fabulous. The calm behind the craziness. Brilliant. Now, I'm sure we're all absolute Zoom professionals now. You will see on your bar there is an annotate button. So I want to make this a bit more interactive. Don't want you just to sit there wondering what's going on with your life. So what I'm interested in is, when does your imposter syndrome strike? So if you've got an annotate button, if you click on annotate, depends on the device you've got. You can use a heart, you can pen. Caroline's putting her hands in the air. Depends if you're on a tablet, Caroline. At the top of your screen, there should be a bar which has an annotate with a pen. If you click that, you can drop down a heart or a star or a little tick. And when you then click, you can then either draw or stamp.
It might just say view options at the very top of your bar. And if you just click on those view options, you should see something that says.
So when does your imposter syndrome strike? Do you get self-doubt, sense of incompetence?
Yeah.
Do you compare yourself to others? And if you can't do that, just type in the chat. It's just equally, I'm just curious to find out whether some people have got the same sense of imposter syndrome and sort of not being able to be good enough. So self-doubt's creeping in here, some stars appearing, lovely, gold stars as well. Immobility, frozen with fear, you can't move, can't do anything. All of the above. Oh, Dell. And so I hope there's not everybody that's all of the above, goodness me. And there's hard to accept praise. I've noticed that in my kids as well, particularly one of them. She's got Clifton Strengths Achiever, works so hard. Also, she has restorative, finds so many problems that need fixing all the time, and doesn't want to be told that she's doing an amazing job. So I learned to write small notes to her every now and again and say, great job. Oh my gosh, it's happening all over, frequently comparing yourself to others. But did you know, for those of you who've ticked that one, that in actual fact, you were born the perfect version of yourself. And so therefore, it's absolutely pointless for you to compare yourself to anyone else, because you're just absolutely perfect. The sense of incompetence. Oh, guys, we're going to hopefully help you big time today. Well, over the last couple of years, in particular with lockdown, we've been running a lot of online conversations and Corona Coaster booster sessions, mood boosters, to try and help people to really move themselves forward, especially in those some of those darker days of the pandemic. And one of the things that we've noticed in the face-to-face workshops over the years, particularly with engineers and scientists, and I need to remember to, as I move on, to clear the annotations. Hayley, can you do that for me? And hopefully all those stars are going to miraculously vaporize. We've noticed that there seem to be 3 deadly mistakes that engineers and scientists are making. They're always finding problems to fix, which maybe, maybe that's just not surprising, because that's what they have both naturally perhaps been inclined to do, but also have been trained to do, to look for the small things, the details. How can we make things better? How can we make this amazing technology that we've just designed really invisible so nobody notices it? I've always found that's a really strange thing about people in engineering and the sciences. Like, let's do this amazing wizarding, fantastic stuff, and then let's it's all gone miraculously. And then let's make it as invisible as possible. I remember going to an Institution of Civil Engineers dinner with, and the comedian's name has just gone, Max Boyce was speaking, and the prize for the best engineering in Wales. And he showed a slide, went to this team who'd created this amazing pipework and underneath the River Severn. And he said, you can't see a thing. So it was amazing. And it was a really underlined how engineers do this great thing about hiding what they do. But they also have this continual desire to improve their technical skills. And they kind of forget about the personal skills and the sort of how they can be a better teammate. And sometimes that's a little bit related to how engineers work and the kind of humor. I was a chemist who moved into semiconductor physics and then into engineering manufacturing. And physicist humor was particularly curious, really quite brutal, very sharp, but always was about undermining and challenging me. And I had that feeling that, that somebody one day was going to come out with that clipboard and say, you don't do this, you don't do that, you didn't answer this question quickly enough. You sure you really know this? Are you capable? Should you be here? It really was that sort of feeling that I shouldn't be there, that I'd been rumbled, and that someday I was going to just worry about it. And the more I worried that I wasn't quick enough, sharp enough, wasn't good enough, the sort of part of my brain, the higher intelligence, the logic, the kind of creativity that I have was being interrupted because as my emotional state heightened and my sense of worry and anxiety magnified, then I wasn't really being able to be the best version of me. And understanding those kinds of things are so important around helping you be your best. So what can we do to help people figure things out? So I just want to check in with you. Everything good with you so far? Yeah, thumbs up. Yeah, excellent. Love to get a bit of feedback. Thank you. See Helen's in there in the chat. Thank you so much, Helen. Appreciate that. If there are questions, please do interrupt me. And it's so I think there's been quite a lot of studies over the years around imposter syndrome. And a recent one from the University of California found that among computer science students, 57% of them had experienced imposter syndrome before graduating. They just didn't feel they were cut out for it. They weren't good enough. So one of the things that comes through that anxiety is burnout and imposter syndrome, and it's damaging careers. So this headline is from Scientific Careers in particular, and is from a career feature. And this is from based around the Nature's 2021 careers salary and job survey. And the problem that we're flagging up here is not just around the dissatisfaction with their jobs and the burnout, but it's people are moving into having mental health problems. And those are triggered because they're related to job satisfaction. Huge amounts of research from Gallup around job satisfaction and what that means in terms of the engagement of the workforce, in terms of productivity and profitability. And that's being summarized in the Gallup book. If I can get this into the right, oh no, I've not got my thing on, is the Wellbeing at Work book, really helping to understand what does well-being mean for each of us in 5 different dimensions. But we know we've got a shortage of scientists and engineers. We've invested a lot of own personal time, but also our governments and our companies and employers have invested masses of time in helping people to achieve their goals of getting qualified and getting jobs in science and engineering. And so we absolutely don't want people to leave. But one of the most important things for me in the work that I've done around inclusion and diversity is the impact on minoritized people in science and engineering. So people who, for a woman working in engineering, you might be one person working in a startup. You might be one of 10%, 20%, maybe 30% if you're working in the biotech sector, but you still tend to be minoritized. And in industry in Britain, if you come from an ethnic minority background, then you're going to really be feeling like you don't belong because there are all sorts of other cultural factors that are included within that feeling. And so we are not enabling, we are wasting talent. We need to be looking at addressing this as educators, but also as employers. But if we come back for a moment to ourselves, we need to understand that we can actually be our own worst enemies. So if you think about people that you've worked with, and maybe this is you, maybe you're the person in a meeting that's going, no, we can't do that. You sort of like, we need to think about the facts, the data, the evidence, the information. We need to think about the risks. And then there's people like me who are like, let's get going, let's move, let's get started, let's move. We can think about these things as we start encountering problems. I used to work with a guy called Dave. It was his name. And he was a nice guy. He was always open for a chat. And I used to describe going in for a meeting with him, or when I used to go and ask him for something. He was the contracts manager. And I used to say, going to his office, as you cross the threshold, it was like there was some kind of friction portal that you walked through. And as you walked through this portal, everything just slowed right down. And I could never get anything out of him. He had a reputation for what I called a Teflon in tray. You know, you would send him some information or pass it to him, and he would just slide it through his in tray into somebody else's. And nothing ever seemed to get done in the space around Dave and his office. But he was a really nice guy. But he was the one who said no. But actually, over time, I've really learned about the fact that having people like that to work with, whilst they can really frustrate me and a bit like sandpaper, rub me up the wrong way, and in the past, I confess they have, I've learned that I need to listen to the people like Dave. But I always love the challenge of being able to persuade them and move them. So in Clifton Strengths Term, I have this thing called strategic, and no one tells me, no, you can't do that, Jan. It's like, yes, but we need to. Let's find another way around it. So I know that from their perspective, I'm probably their own worst nightmare. But I've met people who feel that their greatest talents about anticipating risk, about seeing the problems, about asking for facts and data in meetings that are full of people like me about let's move, let's get moving, feel really not valued and unworthy. And so it's for me to appreciate and let them know how amazing they are, so that they don't feel that they should be like me in the same team. Because there's nothing worse, as we know, of having people in a team that are just like us. We have to have difference. And with difference comes a little bit of kind of like, a bit of frisson of energy that can sometimes turn into a conflict. Maybe you're the kind of person that has a bit of stage or meeting fright. Not necessarily that you're in a rock band. I know people who are introverts, but do like performing. But think about, you're sitting in a meeting, maybe it's you, maybe it's your colleague, and maybe there's a fast flowing conversation. There are people in the conversation who are really about, in this meeting, who like asking lots of questions, and they seem to be incredibly knowledgeable. Maybe it's just that they're brilliant at asking questions. So maybe if you're a really slow reflective thinker, you think, oh my gosh, these guys are so knowledgeable. They've collected information. They know so much. They've got huge brains. And you're sitting there thinking, oh, I need to process this information. I can't quite contribute. I need to go away and think and take it all on board. So maybe you think, oh, I'm not worthy. I shouldn't be here. But actually, maybe your point is to say, this is to interject and say, guys, this is really, really fascinating stuff. We've generated so much amazing information. Can I take this away? I want to go and think about it and put some ideas together for you. But maybe it's that you don't do that because you're not sure, or you don't own that deep sense of thinking that you have, that you really want to be able to really grow and enrich and show that your contribution to the meeting, the project, the team, or whatever it is actually this sense of being a deep, reflective thinker, because everybody else might not be like that. But maybe again, you're the person without the filter. You're the person that's like, you love to talk and communicate. You love to share. You get energized by sharing the knowledge and information that you found. In which case, maybe you're the person that's thinking, oh, I need to prove that I'm good enough. So you keep on talking and sharing. And everybody else is thinking, I'd like to get a word in edgeways, but the person who's sharing the meeting, they won't shut up. And actually, that's not quite right. But I can't interrupt because they're chairing the meeting and they're more important. It could be a cultural difference, depending on where your background is, where the country you've been grown up in. But it's like, what do you do? And one of the people who participated in one of our programs over the last couple of years confessed actually that this was her. And she was thinking, oh, but I'm an amazing communicator. And absolutely she was. And so she started to think about, what do I come across? So we explored asking great questions. We love reading books in Katalytik. We love reading things like The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay-Stanier. And the other one that I've loved reading in a global book mastermind lately was Humble Inquiry, learning how to ask questions that say, tell me, I'm curious. How interesting. What would happen if? But really shifting your position in the conversation. So having that shift and looking at yourself and where you are in relation to other people can be incredibly powerful, particularly for people in science and engineering, so focused on the outer circle and the science, engineering, technology. Or if you're not a scientist or engineering and you're more of an educator, people, when you're focused on pushing and developing and really embedding your technical discipline into reality. It might be that you're focused on the outside of the people dynamics. So I love creating models around things. And I know this kind of model is used in so many different ways by so many different people. But for me, this is about putting yourself in the center, understanding who you are, but then understanding that whilst you interact with all these other people, there's this matrix that you operate in. That matrix, could be a nice bit of gritty sandpaper, and the interactions between you and everybody else, a bit like going into Dave's. I saw that as a challenge. And how could I navigate it, and how could I get him to move? It was a bit like a chess game. I don't know that he was playing the chess game, but I for sure was. So what is it about that matrix that is, what's happening in there that can help you understand your interactions and relations with other people? Helen and I bring really different perspectives into the coaching environment. I'm very focused on outcomes and about creating energy and moving people forwards in a way of enabling them to look at in a strategic and creative way about where they are. And Helen is very focused about understanding the relationships between people. And so for scientists and engineers, it's around trying to help you think about how you can look at your use your natural capacity and capability to look for evidence and being objective, but do that in a way of how you focus on serving others. So rather than focusing on that friction layer and pushing forward and being convinced that you're in the right, is almost looking at it from without, stepping outside and looking back in, and looking at how you can serve other people best. It's an interesting dynamic to shift the position that you're in. But it also helps other people to navigate the kind of cultural soup that you come from and that you live in. But we all inhabit our own kind of cultural soup. So I just think this having a matrix like this is a great framework for people in science and engineering to use to help them shift things. So one of the I mentioned earlier about what happens when our emotional states range, and I like that the soup piece, because the kind of friction piece could come from your inner chimp, the Tom Peters chimp around where that intercepts information that comes in and sort of plays around with it. And the science that's coming out, and I am no neuroscientist, didn't touch anything that was wet and slimy. Semiconductor physics was my game. It's fascinating that my kids have both gone into the slimy sciences, if you like. But so it's really interesting because I know nothing about what they talk about at the dinner table. But it's great because I'm learning so much. But I love the kind of the neuroscience and the understanding about how our brains work. And this slide around what happens to our brains when we are really calm and in a state of low emotion and we're relaxed, that the blood goes to all sorts of different places in our brain. But that means that the amygdala, that's sort of where the chimp, Tom Peters chimp, kind of grabs things and shakes everything about, isn't really that busy. And it's allowing our higher functions to really to do the things that it needs to do to help us do the work we want to do in the way that we are doing it. But when we get into that higher emotional state, we're feeling stressed, we're worried, we're excited, we're in love. Something's really irritating us and the sandpaper is rubbing us up the wrong way. And what happens there is the blood flow to the amygdala grows and takes hold of anything and everything and just puts it into that washing machine and lowers that sort of access to information that is going on in the sort of logical part of our brain. And so what's really interesting about the research that's coming out over the last year from MIT about understanding people who have got imposter syndrome is that they're turning out to be more able to notice other people. And the scientists, the strategies that we were talking about in terms of putting yourself outside and looking at other people and helping you to become more self-aware, but intentionally understanding other people, allows you to start being more focused. And Basima Tufix at MIT is a behavioral scientist, has noticed in her research that by tuning into imposter syndrome, it's allowing you to be more attentive to other people. It's about creating that balance between how it immobilizes you, but how you can then flip it to start being intentional and using that way that you notice and worry, but be intentional about using it. So this research is about 3,600 people across 4 different studies that's been brought together. And so what we want to try and do is keep more people in the science and engineering STEM related professions and help them to start becoming more conscious of who people are, so that when we're working in the education system, we're introducing people to the facets of communication, self-awareness, and then once they've grounded in that, becoming more aware of other people. So I do love the sort of human behavior and you know, the sort of the relation of it to imposter syndrome. Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. I've seen people relating it to your upstairs, downstairs thinking, but it's the same thing as Tom Peterson is in a chimp. But it's around how we can manage our emotional state so that we can then start capturing the chimp and interrogating the chimp. So we're not just letting our thoughts swim around in our head. And one strategy that I come across is to give your imposter syndrome or your chimp a name. And so you could call yours, so mine was Jan Poster. How can I challenge Jan Poster to stop worrying about whether she's good enough at doing this, or actually she's already done this before. You've done it before. What are you talking about? Why are you worrying about it? Go and dig out those notes. And so some of those strategies that we've developed are around creating yourself that those memories and moments that you can pull on when you're really getting stressed and fed up about it. But the problem with imposter syndrome and those thoughts that undermine you, that sort of cognitive burden that we carry if you're a minoritized person in any situation, is the first time one of those comments lands on you. You know, it's just like a feather, just a feather, little comments. And the challenge is that when a couple more land on you, if you don't notice them land or you're trying to ignore them, before you know where you are, suddenly there's quite a few more feathers and they kind of pile up and you stop being able to brush them off. And then when one day you've got a ton of feathers, but feathers only light, isn't it? And when someone makes that small little comment to you, you snap back. It's like, why did you snap back? It was a tiny comment. It was completely out of proportion. But we all know, don't we, from that sort of logical thinking that we were given years ago, what's heavier, a ton of lead or a ton of feathers? They all weigh the same. It's all pretty heavy stuff. And we are silenced, we're trapped, we're miserable. And I've seen that happen to many people. A lot of them are minorities in STEM, but it does happen to men too. And it's only too late that you recognize that you just need to escape, you're miserable. And through coaching, we've been able to help a number of people to escape into amazing places. So those 3 mistakes that engineers and scientists make are about focusing on the technical aspects, not being able to focus on the deeper, more relational based aspects of the work that they're doing, because there's always pressure to get the product out of the door. And if somebody isn't delivering, well, let's all step up and let's work harder to make sure that they can do it. That those of us who are not as confident as others work extra hard to prove that we can do it. But also something I've noticed in particular is that scientists and engineers, there's this stereotype, particularly engineers, it's a stereotype that engineers are logical, analytical individuals. They are focused on demonstrating that core skill and competence is that aspect of being able to look at data. The thing is, though, that not all of us have our natural innate talents that are just about logical thinking. Some of us are about creativity. And of course, we can think logically and we can sit down and problem solve. But our natural instinct is to be creative. My husband, for example, amazing team leader, runs a very successful engineering teams, electronics design engineer, actually works through his amazing talents of understanding and working with people, investing time and energy in helping every single person be their best. Completely opposite to me. Amazing individual, to be fair. Creates some interesting moments, of course, but it's that difference that makes people work together. And the problem, though, for some engineers who aren't, and I'm talking male engineers in particular here, is that when they are not delivering on that logical, analytical approach because they're engaged in the organization and planning, perhaps, or they're focused on connecting the team and drawing people in, their focus is on helping other people be their best because that's what they do, almost secondary to the technical output. All vital parts of the team, but those people are having to work extra hard to demonstrate their capability as logical and analytical beings, as true engineers. So that's where we're finding men in engineering feeling like they're imposters too. And that can all layer up. But you know what? The thing about imposters and imposter syndrome is that you're only actually an imposter when you're trying to be someone who you aren't. So it's quite an interesting thought. So I'll leave that to land with you for a moment. So where does imposter feelings come from? I mentioned some of these already. So it's about the political, cultural soup that you're existing in, whether it's in your social network, your work group, or with your clients that you're working with. If you don't feel like you quite fit, you have a different way of approaching things. There's a really good, the Lewis model for cultural interactions is quite an interesting framework to look at. Being in a minority in your school, in your workplace, again, some of that's related to the culture, but some of it is really just about, are you using the right vocabulary? Do you have the same vocabulary? What's your social capital? But also they come from small comments that can be interpreted differently. And a lot of that comes as well from your inner chimp, worrying about where things have come from and overthinking things and then putting it into the wrong place. But immediately, because your amygdala has got hold of it, it's kind of like really just getting bigger and bigger and having great fun. But that's not making you feel good, is it? So I'm loving some feedback. I can see the chat is whizzing by. Everything going okay? Any questions? Thank you, Paul. Thumbs up. Brilliant.
Jan, there's a few questions actually. I think I might save them to the end. There's a few things come up, so I'm just making notes to.
Are you okay?
Bring at the end.
Any burning things that am I going too fast, too slow? Doing okay?
Yeah, it feels
brilliant.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. So if you want a nudge or a kickstart, you want a bit of momentum to help you to be your best. And if it's really about understanding your strengths and how they really, really work. And it's something I think that people aren't really talking about. We're so focused, aren't we, on the things that we've got to fix, must learn more about that, must go and beat that, must go and develop this. Some of us go and do course after course after course to prove that we're really worthy of the things that we're doing. But there are, I want to give you some steps that help you can overcome those sense of imposter syndrome that you were flagging up at the bottom. You know what I forgot to do, Hayley, and you may have done it, but you may not, is I didn't take the screen snap of all those the most frequent imposter syndrome aspects. But I do apologise that I can't relate it back, which I would have loved to do. So if you want to understand how to be the best version of you, and also how we can help you shine, we want to really help you to tune into ways that you may have been living before. And so the failure formula for scientists and engineers are about, let's just explain away our success. I've heard fellows of the Royal Society and Royal Academy of Engineering do exactly this kind of thing. Oh, I was just in the right place. Oh, it was the right time. I was just lucky. I want to, and it's about, well, it was just really simple. I just did it, which underlines, of course, the amazing talent and skill and investment of your energy and expertise in becoming so amazing. You've probably heard the joke about the engineer who went to fix someone's central heating, and the guy didn't want to pay the £300 bill. And so he said, I'll do it myself, and didn't do it. So the engineer went round and then went and fixed it in a few minutes. And the invoice said, tapping the pipes, £1, 15 years of expertise and experience, £299. And so it's that understanding what the value is that we've created within ourselves. The fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering, I've always had people who believed in me more than I believed in myself. And if that is not imposter syndrome, I do not know. But actually, it's around always saying, somebody helped me do it. I just didn't do it on my own. And it's sometimes as well, we don't like to don't like to say we're successful, because we don't want to feel like we're being big-headed. And some of these things come from a cultural aspect. So it's around, how can we shift this failure formula and move it into a success formula? And so what can you do? Challenge your chimp, I say. Grab hold of it by the scruff of its neck, metaphorically, obviously, of course. So the sort of like, let's interrupt that chimp, the one that's hijacking you and stopping it from taking information and preventing it from getting to our prefrontal cortex. That study I mentioned at MIT, piece of information I was reading the other day, they found that it lowers your IQ by 10 to 15 points if you're in a state of stress or fear. James, your eyebrows have just shot up. Did you know that? Unless it's a photograph of surprise.
I'm surprised it's only 10 or 15%, to be honest.
Really?
Certainly under pressure, sometimes my mind goes blank, really.
Oh, I'm sure we can help you with that. Do you just go blank? Do you go often blank?
Sorry, do I go blank?
Do you go blank often?
Oh, I've gone blank. Sorry. Right, sorry, I thought you were right. Okay, there we are.
You had that sort of permanent eyebrows raised. Yeah, interesting. So you think it would be more than that? But sometimes I think when you zone out, it's not necessarily frozen in fear, but maybe there is something going on in there. Who knows? But yeah, no. Well, that is the study from 3,603 people of that 10 to 15 point lowering. But it's sort of when that can still have significant impact. So my second one is success formula: shift to focus on others, and then learn how you interact with other people and know your worth and you're valued. And that's those sort of really, it's fueled by those 3 deadly mistakes that scientists and engineers make. And that can be in the face of amazing feedback. You've been promoted, you've got successfully chartered and award winners. And then the Clifton Strengths coaching that we use at Katalytik, over the last couple of years, we've had people who've participated in programs, people who've won awards, several awards, one individual, had some amazing individual successes. Somebody who kept never quite getting around to getting chartered, got chartered, and has just been really shouting out about it on Facebook recently, which is just brilliant to really feel our inner buckets here at Katalytik, really energized by it. So if you can, and you'll indulge me for a couple of minutes. I just want to share a little bit about momentum from Katalytik. And we've been using Clifton Strengths within our work program since 2011. Initially, it was around working with undergraduate teams in the engineering program at UCL and how we could help the teams be more inclusive. And so that the women students, as the initial starting point of the project, felt like they were part of it, and helping the students develop that vocabulary of what they brought, but what they needed to be their best. And one of the main reasons that we love it is there are, you know, I mean, I've done Belbin early in my career, but then I was always beaten up for not being a completer finisher, because I get too excited about new shiny things and creating new things. But I was not the person who was worried too much with the detail. Of course, I can do the detail, but I don't get energized by it. I just get energized by the exciting things. And we've done Myers-Briggs, of course. But I don't know about you, but some people think I'm an extrovert. But the reality is I actually think I'm an introvert, that I don't get energized by big groups of people. I get energized by the creating spaces and going to parties and conferences. But once I'm there and it's working, I'm fine. I've done my piece. I'll just sit quietly in the corner. Thank you very much. So one of the reasons we love Clifton Strengths, you've got a 1 in 33 million chance of having the same top 5. You have a profile of them all, the same top 5 in the same order as anybody else. So in the UK, maybe 2 people that have the same top 5 as me in the same order. Helen would perhaps tell you that one of us is enough, but that's and it's really about it gives you the vocabulary that describes you in amazing, rich detail. I was doing some coaching the other day with a guy, and we shared in our top 10 profile, we shared 7 out of 10. Our top 5 was 4 out of 5. And he had in his that he had this, he said, you have an amazingly rich vocabulary that overawes some people. And he just looked at that. He said, what does that mean? And I said, well, you probably use quite a large words. And he said, well, how's that a problem for anybody? Said, maybe if people have got a different background than you, or they may feel a bit intimidated. They've not had rich conversations at dinner. You went, okay. And he said, I suppose I do have a large lexicon. And I just laughed, because who uses that word, lexicon? Got a big vocabulary. And I love it because I can see a couple of you laughing there. I love it because it makes people laugh. It's a great source of humor. Yes, of course I do that. And so we've been using it for so many different ways. And one of the things over the years that we've learned is that leaders listen. And so as well as that, we've been building listening skills into not just one-to-one coaching, but also into the workshops and the coaching groups that we've been developing, building over the years. And if you look on our LinkedIn profile, you'll see examples of people who've been participated in our programs and really enjoyed working with us. And we found that creating groups of people that come from similar-ish backgrounds or technical disciplines is amazingly powerful, because the rich source of stories and challenges, people can both identify with them, but also can find that they hear about things they hadn't thought about. And using Clifton Strengths, we have this vocabulary to give difference. So lots of amazing stories and experiences that we've had, and it's just super powerful. So it's how are we doing this working with engineers? I've already kind of covered the momentum group coaching, offering people space every other week to come together and share and discuss and look at the challenges that they've set out at the beginning, making sure everybody's making progress on the journey, but using Clifton Strengths to help us develop that tool. We share resources, and we've got ongoing support that we give to people in between time. And there's a dedicated chat, as well as that group coaching and practice and space to learn, to listen more deeply, using some of the work from people like Oscar Trimboli, and the sort of strategies that we're learning from the Humble Inquiry book. And we love sharing tracts and bits from those books that we continue to read over time. And ultimately, it's really about having meaningful conversations, allowing people to both learn, adapt, connect, and support each other, and focus on what people do best and not what they're doing wrong, helping people to become fulfilled, both at work, but also energized at home. And amazing tool for helping understand your kids as well. So we've created the Kickstarter program. So we were running this as a year-long program, but we found that people really love to come together in a more condensed progress. And this is like perfect if you're looking to get a promotion in 2023. You're really looking to go for a chartership, or just think, I'm going to get rid of 2022, done with it, had enough. So now is the time to start thinking about how you can work on being your best self in the coming year. So the Kickstarter program is £999, and we've put it together with all sorts of added value and bonuses for you, giving you some personalized insight summaries, a bring and need sheet to really help you pull out in those moments about feeling frustrated, going to a meeting. What is it that I need from my line manager, from my annual review? I need more of this because that's going to help me be my best. It just gives you the words and vocabulary to talk about it. And in the group coaching, it allows you to practice asking for those things in a really natural way. It just comes to you. So key part of the Kickstarter program is an onboarding call, one-to-one, which is about goal setting, understanding what you want and need from participating in the program. And we're also offering, as well as a bonus, is this sort of personal insight session, taking you through your Clifton Strengths 34 profile and helping you to understand it. And as part of that, we really value the resources that are within the Wellbeing at Work book from Gallup. So we're going to include a copy of that too. And of course, we want you to take the Clifton Strengths Assessment and the full 34 profiles. So we're including that too. And one of the great things about the Wellbeing at Work book, it's got another code in the back, which is just for the top 5. But do you know what? You can give that to your friend, your colleague, or your significant other. You know, I gave mine to my mum when I bought the book, and it's brilliant because she's the kind of person that stops and chats to anybody and tells them all sorts of things. Even on a tour of a local strawberry farm, she started telling the farmer, who's a friend, about how to grow strawberries and what happens when you have an oil spill on the strawberries. Just like, you know, dying with embarrassment. Sorry, Mum, if you're watching. And anyway, she did her Clifton Strengths profile, and she had, I can't stop laughing to think about it. She came out with WOO, which is winning others over. People who just love going and talking to anybody. There's no strangers on the planet, just 7 billion people you haven't met yet. And yep, she had that in her top 5. She had communication. Of course she did. She likes to communicate and share. And she had input. She collects knowledge and information. She loves history. She's got an amazing knowledge of Egyptology, about maritime battles. Good on you, Mum. She just loves sharing it with you in great detail. So if you're ever bored or lonely, just let me know and I'll connect you. But having that extra code is just a really great value and bonus for you. But you know what, of course, it's we want you to gain value from it. So for today, we're just going to offer that for £599, which is an incredible value when you see how people have grown from it. So I know Hayley's going to put the link into the chat so you can find out more about it. And it may not be that that's interested. It might indeed be that you think you've got a friend who that would just be perfect for them. So please do share it with them. But we do, well, you know, want to get this. The next cohort is onboarding at the moment, so we'd love to have people participating. And so those are those sort of illustrations of the things that we're going to be sending to you. So those questions are those. Helen's prodding me for some questions. So onboarding process, it's very structured and it's very straightforward. And Helen is brilliant at managing that. And it's all virtual. But of course, we're also keen to make sure people get what they want out of it. Why do we do group coaching? Well, solo coaching is absolutely brilliant. It's really, really powerful. And some people do both. But for some people, it's really too intense. And they feel a bit overwhelmed by it. It's about the pressure of having to have done the things they said they do at the last session and they haven't quite got round to doing. But it can also be really quite expensive, like £150 to £500 just for one session. But being in a group gives all sorts of different benefits. It's about hearing from other people in those diverse experiences and situations. It's that sense of community. It's affirmation that you're amazing, actually, and you're really unique. And it's time and space to practice talking about how phenomenal you really are. But above all, it ends up being fun, and you grow your own community and network. So I did promise you at the beginning that 3 strategies to help you kick imposter syndrome into touch. So the first one is about name it to tame it. So it's a phrase you'll find online. And this comes around directly really from that inverse relationship from that was discovered by a neuroscientist about the relationship between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, about how our thinking power can be interrupted and by our sort of challenges and our emotions, just because the oxygen's getting snatched up by the amygdala. And it's that sort of data around our losing our IQ by James has said it's more than 15 points. Maybe you're right. Maybe we can have a vote on that at the end. So it's name it to tame it. Notice it, challenge it, tune into it. And that's just a reminder of that sort of graphic. And there'll be a link in that in the follow-up to you. The second thing we find incredibly useful is create yourself a confidence booster jar. So those things that are good, when you remember them, keep a jar, a pen and some paper close together. Write things down, because if you're a scientist or an engineer, that you need the evidence, you need the facts to reinforce to yourself and prove to you that it's right. You are worthy, you are good enough. So write those things on that piece of paper. And then those moments when you're going, oh, I'm not worthy, I really can't cope, is you can get them out and lay them out. And you can put them in an order. Which one's the most important? Which ones have you forgotten about? If you're on social media, post a picture of it and say, claim it, own it. And the third thing, think about how you can serve others. Expand your world to look outside of that 3-layered sphere and focus on others and see what you can do to help them be their best. Because do you know what? As soon as you start doing that, you're innately not thinking and worrying about yourself. You start being your best at the same time. So I want you to start changing your narrative. Notice yourself, create that bank of positive words, create a gratitude jar, a confidence jar, and then know what your strengths are and know what energizes you. And find yourself a coach or a mentor, because you really are worth it. You've invested so many hours in your technical skills and expertise. You need to help yourself, release yourself to be your best. So brush off those little feathers and absolutely don't compare yourself to others. That's all I ask of you, really. Don't compare yourself to others, because just as you are perfect. So we want you to help find your inner warrior. And those are some of the points that we think you can do to help it. So we do that through Kickstarter program with lots of bonuses and benefits. And it's going to be closing on the 9th of September. So do find out more about it. And I would hope that you do join us with it. But do remember, you're only an imposter when you're trying to be someone who you aren't. So it's time for me to listen to your questions. And I hope that you found that useful, interesting. And if nothing else, it's triggered you to go away and have a few thoughts. So thank you. Thank you for those thumbs up. Appreciate it.